It's the Jack
and Cathy
Show.
Shit Show.
And there we go.
Yeah,
Okay, I think it. Yeah.
Okay.
I got my ass out of bed at like 6:45.
Nice.
And then we did a little workout here in the basement.
Yeah, we did a little.
It's not a P90X.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is?
Sure.
I thought the 90 meant 90 minutes.
Well, no, it's 90 days.
Oh, 90 days. We did.
Yeah, P90X 3 is the disc.
Got it.
Yeah, we did a challenge
old-fashioned way where you put a disc into something.
Yeah.
Versus streaming.
I was going to say something inappropriate there.
So we did a Tony Horton. Shocking. We did a Tony Horton workout.
Tony Horton?
Tony Horton.
I love the P90X stuff, though.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good morning. I'm glad we're doing our podcast just by ourselves today.
Yeah.
Well,
so yeah. And the truth is...
What?
We recorded it.
We recorded this last night, or 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago.
And it, got a brand new computer for all of this stuff that Key had asked us to get to make the podcast better for our 7 listeners, 8 listeners now.
Sure.
And so screen cracked within the first 2 weeks, and so we're using the old computer, and the old computer can't handle some of the new software, and so it crashed multiple times. We had a really nice. I thought the podcast was great. Nothing was saved.
It's
such a bummer. But it'll be new for everybody else. It just won't be for us.
Yes,
right?
This is true.
So
and you can never repeat the exact same thing. So maybe more things.
Yeah, maybe it'll come to light a little bit differently. But great workout this morning.
It was a good workout.
Tony Horton and P90X saved my lift.
It was an upper body workout, so it was like pull-ups and pull-downs, and I can't do pull-ups or chin-ups.
Well, you were
so
using
it's with
the
a
bands,
band,
though. Yeah,
a band hanging from the rafters, and then push-ups, and it was 30 minutes of different variations of that.
You crushed it.
Well, I don't know if I crushed it. I crushed it for myself, but compared to those. Specimens, those human specimens in the video. That one chick that was on there, she's insane.
She fucking rocks.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. So anyway, here we are.
Hey.
We're recording.
So as much as I like interviewing people, and I do, and we have so many more interviews coming up. We've got a guy that we met through Compass. We've got a lawyer coming up, which will be exciting. Possibly a woman who owns a Bernedoodle. Breeder company, which we're excited about, and then certainly other couples. However, I do like just you and me on this thing.
I do too.
Sweetie pie pumpkin lips.
Well, we deep dive into some pretty big stuff, and
we do.
And why don't you lead us into what?
Me?
Yeah, lead us in.
Well, you're the one that had the idea.
Okay.
So in the last podcast that we recorded that didn't save and got lost, you led the way. You talked for a long time.
Did I now?
Yeah.
All right.
In a good way. In a good way.
So basically what I wanted to talk about in this one is, I love sharing all our vulnerable moments as well, because you and I can be quite silly and I have been asking that, in our moments where we're not doing so well, I have expressed that I'd like to go talk to a therapist together. And not so much because I feel like we're falling apart and we, need to save this relationship, but really just as general maintenance. I felt like it was healthy. And I have some friends in Colorado that years ago, she shared with me that she and her husband would go to see a therapist just for the heck of it, like every month or every quarter. I don't even know the timing, but it wasn't necessarily to go talk about a specific issue, but it was as if you're just going for general maintenance. Like you take your car in to get the oil changed because that's what's good for the car. And so I thought, that could be really good because I know that I could use some more tools in my emotional toolbox. I don't do this right every time, most of the time. But I don't do this right every time. And I have my insecurities. I have my defensive wall that comes up. I can I sometimes lose the ability to listen. My brain can go haywire with emotion, and I can't focus. So, and in this relationship with you, I'm really learning a lot more about myself, and I am trying to critically, objectively look at myself. Maybe not critically, but objectively look at myself and think, what could I do better? And so,
You didn't get my list?
yeah, thank you. I bet there is a list.
It's for different things.
So I had asked you, I know you had seen a wonderful therapist in Chicago named Linda, who you hold in high regard, and you have worked with for a good handful of years. And I said, well, what about Linda? Do you think Linda would see us? And we weren't sure, because Linda, obviously, Linda is your therapist, and there would be a natural maybe bias or for you, and there's potential that maybe it wouldn't be the right fit for me. But what I liked about the idea of Linda is that she knew you so well. And I thought that was a serious leg up on us making progress. So yeah, we went to see Linda. And it was pretty awesome. First of all, she's awesome. Cool lady. And truly somebody that I would say, oh, let's go have a glass of wine now.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
She'd be somebody you'd want to hang out with and shoot the shit with, and somebody that, and I haven't seen many therapists in my life, but would you say that's something that we search for, like somebody that almost reflects us? Like, does that feel like somebody, like, would you ever go see a therapist that was maybe fresh out of school, or was maybe 20 years older than we are? And, because there's a different, do you think the generational differences matter in therapy?
Wow. So this is taking a totally different angle than what we did a couple of days ago.
That question just popped in my head.
Yeah. Well, let's flow with it.
Because I feel like Linda is a similar age to we are, and so there's a real relatability. It's really easy to talk to her.
Well, on a personal note, it's not often that therapists share too much about their personal lives, and so they'll introduce some elements so that there's at least a connectivity. So like, I feel you because I've lived that. I don't want to be critical of someone that doesn't have kids. When you don't have kids, you don't know what it's like to have kids, right? And I don't know what it's like to not have kids. I don't know what it's like to be a woman and have a period. I'm not trying to be obnoxious with that. And so Linda's been divorced before and remarried, and so she has some of her own relational experiences that I think are wholly relevant. Yeah. And so when you go back to a question that you asked, I forgot what it was. You said,
well, if the generational, if finding someone of your like generation is maybe essential to finding the right therapist.
So without going too far down a rabbit hole, there was a time when a younger therapist, like an intern, had come in to talk to me about something. And it was funny because I think I'm answering your question in a story. She's talking and talking and talking. Then I got a lot of stereotypical responses. It'll be okay. This too shall pass. That kind of shit. And so... How'd
that go over?
Well, so I went, do me a favor, add about 20 more years to your life and then give me a call because we're done here. Because I feel bad now when I think about how I said it, and I also know me. And so the reason Linda works so well, and you were witness to some of it, she challenges me and I push back. Right? If I feel that, like at one point she was asking a question when we were together. And by the way, I want everyone to hear this because this is really important to me. And I said this on the podcast that wasn't.
Yeah.
We're not there because something's wrong between the two of us. You mentioned on the podcast that didn't get recorded, and you said it just now, tools in your toolbox, many of which I spent years cultivating, right? And so in some ways, without being obtuse, I just have a little bit leg up on some things, right? So getting back to the Linda part and all this, she asked me a couple of questions, more so just like setting questions, like, hey, how are you feeling during this? And how are you feeling during that? Whatever it was. And if you saw, I kept saying, what do you mean? What are you asking? Because I could tell she was trying to get at something a little bit deeper, but she was just scratching it at first to get me to go deeper. And so she picked up that I was like, just go deep, go there. Ask me what you want to ask, or judge me. Say what you're feeling. So for me, Linda worked out of a bunch of other therapists that I've seen, and even therapists that I know my kids have in some way seen, because she challenged me. So that's what it is for me. Age is less relevant. It's intellect. As long as I feel they're really smart and they're not letting me get away with stuff, and they're not letting my partner get away with stuff, that they're getting us to get to our core and being respectful of all those things. That's what I like about her.
Yes.
Did that answer your question in 4 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I again, love Linda. She communicated with both of us very well. She knew you very well, knows exactly how to communicate with you. And
but it sounds like that connection you had with her, though, was greater, though, because of some of the age things and some of her experience.
I think so.
Okay.
In hindsight, because I didn't ask you what Linda looked like or how old she was or any of that. I had no preconceived idea of whether I was going to like her or not, or what she would be like personally. But I left there thinking she was really cool. And
so did our going there meet your expectations?
It did.
Exceed, meet? Yeah.
It did. I think it was really, I was very comfortable. Thank you, baby. I was very comfortable, and I think she was good at drawing out some difficult conversation from both of us. And I had some aha moments that I think that were wonderful takeaways for me. And I just felt sort of refreshed and renewed, and I felt closer to you, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really beautiful. I mean, in contrast, I had a therapist once when I was really struggling in my marriage, who had a personal belief, and it was a religious belief, that you don't get divorced ever. And that really shut me down, not because, maybe because I was very convinced that I was not with my life partner. And she just, her goal was to fix that. And she had me read, I told you, she had me read a book called Loving Frank. And it was about Frank Lloyd Wright, who had an affair with a married woman who had children. And, back then it was super scandalous. And in the end, the woman and her children get murdered out at Taliesin.
Oh God.
East, and I don't know. It was just this horrible. And I put the book down, and
what
I was
the
like,
point of her having you read it?
Why did she tell me to read that?
Yeah. Why did she tell you to read it? Do you remember?
That if you, I don't know.
Maybe if you get divorced, you're going to get murdered.
I think like your life will fall apart. I was so upset. I don't think I went to see her again after that, because I was like, yeah, you are not the right person for me, because I am, it took me a long time to.
Could you back up just a little?
It took me a long time to stop beating myself up that I wanted a divorce. This is going a completely different direction than our first recording.
Different than the last time.
I know.
But I do want to get to the reason for talking about all this. You remember what that was? About how going to see a therapist versus public discussion of this.
Yes.
So I want to get there at some point.
Yes. But anyway, so I won't dwell too long down the divorce path, but
Linda,
but she wasn't the right therapist for me.
Linda asked me to read books. Mm-hmm. I think the context was way different. It was after we had gone through a series of exercises, right, where she felt that the challenges that were in front of me weren't quite as big a challenge anymore. Then she said, hey, I'd like you to consider reading this book. But it was very inward. And the first book she asked me to read was The Four Agreements, which just, if you know anything about it, it says things like don't take things personally, and your word is, I forget them now, of course, right? In the heat of doing this stuff, I'm still in workout mode. My brain and arms and shoulders are killing me. But my point is, she had me read a book, but it was in context of all the things we'd been learning at this point, and she felt it would be a good introspective moment for me. But it wasn't some like Anne Frank's diary, so that I'd realize how valuable life is. Fuck that shit. It was more about how to live life a certain way, as opposed to hearing about someone else's travails or triumphs or whatever you want to call it. So I think it's all context. And again, for me, if you want to get back to the question, it was, I need someone to. Hey, I'm trying to get in shape here, right? I'm trying to get in mental shape. So I don't want to go to a personal trainer who says, yeah, do a push-up. Great job, honey. It might work for somebody else, not me.
Yeah.
I need someone that goes, let's go. Another one, push another one. And so that's why it works. So getting back to Linda, I'd like to know what...
Yeah, one of the great things that drove me to that idea was the tools in the toolbox, but also, I've shared with you that prior to meeting you and having an emotional connection with you and having communication with you, all I had prior to you were my girlfriends.
Yeah.
And thank you to the universe for these women that are in my life, because I swear I would not be the person I am today had I not had them in my life and still have them in my life. And so I just know that I always shared with them. They were my emotional stabilization. They were my sounding board. And when things were really shaky in my previous relationships, they were it. I went to them. And meeting you and I discussed that we'd like to turn towards each other with our problems. And I'll be honest, that's hard sometimes, because I was missing an outlet. I don't have the perfect words to say to you every time, or a solution, or sometimes just to be like, bleh. And
what was that?
And you heard me.
No, do it again.
No.
Please.
No. And because we both agreed that could potentially undermine each other. Like if I go to a girlfriend and say, Jack did this, and I don't want them to not look at you the same way. And so that was the other reason that I needed somebody to talk to. And I loved the idea that somebody already understood how Jack ticks, because you don't tick like the average person.
I talk.
Exactly. You talk.
I believe that, because I've been on that side too, where you've got to talk to somebody, because when you're in that kind of emotional stuck place with yourself, I just need someone to validate that my emotions are real, right?
Right.
The key thing is, at least for me, because I did the same thing. I'd run to people and say, my ex or my girlfriend or whatever, family members, whomever would listen, because I was just like, oh my God, I just need to know that what I'm experiencing is okay. And what Linda taught me was twofold. One, my emotions are okay. Right? Get in touch with, why am I feeling that way? What's going on that, like I just listened to a Brene Brown thing about envy, and she thought envy was anger, right? Or resentment rather, was anger. Did you see? I think I sent it to you. That resentment was anger, and resentment is envy, right? And she gave the example of, I thought I was mad at you because I'm working and you're going out. I'm just envious of the fact that you're not working today and I am. And so that's where resentment comes from, right? And so it's a personal thing. So what Linda taught me was to bring that inside. And what I set out to do with you, which I've said in all these podcasts, I was going to do everything different, because you're the only common denominator in our relationship is me. Right? I'm the only one that's been in all of my relationships. And so I'm going to do things differently. So when we have conflict, I'm not telling anybody about it. We're going to solve this. We're going to figure this out. And that's hard.
Did you in the past, did you have a male friend or a female friend that you would...
Well, they could sense something was up, and I'd be like, man, the other day, is it weird? I mean, shouldn't she want to go to X? Or is it funny that they said this about me was really hurtful? Right? Well, that's looking for validation. Instead, I'm going to go to you. And you've seen me do it. Kath, you hurt me. Kath, I need you to show up right now. Kath, that was a bid for connection that you missed. right? And when you hear that now, you're like, what in the fuck? Bid for connection. It's almost like you go to your, like the dictionary of what's bid for connection. And I'm not picking on you. You know that, right? But I can even sense in you that this is challenging for you sometimes. And so I applaud you for saying, let's go to Linda because she knows you. And the coolest thing was she was in on it. She loved the idea.
Yeah. In fact, we got there and she's like, oh, good news. I had a client that canceled and we can sit here for 2 hours.
Yeah. So we hung out for 2 hours and we talked about this on the podcast that wasn't. So I know between the two of us, I can probably recall things that we talked about that I'm trying to pull back in, which it's hard to do this now, right? It's hard to create that same spontaneity. The challenge I have if we were to start talking about people is the way in which we do it. Right?
You mean talking to friends?
Yeah, because I get that you want to have an outlet for something and we even talked about it. Maybe it's a girl thing, you know, sometimes dudes do it. I don't know. I get reluctant to go down kind of stereotypical paths. You know that about me. I just feel that if you were to go to one of your friends, for example, and say, get a load of what Jack did, they can't see me the same anymore. And so the power, if you want to talk to your friends about it, is to me the reverse. Hey, Jack and I had an argument and I reacted poorly. Do I do that a lot? Ex-friend or XYZ friend rather, right? I don't mean ex-friend. I know it came out wrong, but I meant the number or the letter X, but not the EX. Do I have a tendency to do that? Do I have a tendency to act this way? That to me is why you go to your friend. And then if they say, well, what happened? At least this is my opinion on it. If they say, well, what happened? Go, I don't want to get into the details. I just know I got upset. And I just want to know, is this something that I have a tendency to do? Is this something I need to work on? Because then it doesn't make it look like it's me. Right? And they may ask, hey, did he hurt you? Are you okay? Yeah, we're good. I just know I reacted a certain way.
Well, could
is that fair?
Be? Yes. I mean, I'm thinking to certain girlfriends that I really, really trust that, I don't know, we've been through a lot together. And I think girls share more than guys do.
They might.
So, and yeah.
I think my question to you is, we talked about this when we couldn't record the podcast, that I just feel going to somebody and friends and especially to friends saying things like, get a load of what Jack did yesterday. We were doing this and he said, I'm not showing up from emotionally. Are you kidding me? I've done this, I did that. The tendency for your friends, at least I'm guessing, I'm not labeling any of your friends. But my guess would be anyone's friends would start to take your side. Why would he do that?
Yeah.
I'm a different friend. I'm the first person that goes, well, I don't really want to know about them. What did you do? How did you handle it? What was your reaction? Because I don't know them and I wasn't there. And so that's not, you know how I talk like this. It is not fair for me to have a story you tell about them without them being here.
Yeah.
If you want to tell me what you did wrong, I'll be willing to listen to it. But because, see, I just feel it puts, boy, you have a total weird look on your face right now, like you're disagreeing with me.
My concentration face.
I would rather us grab toolbox and try to sort it out. I love the fact that we go to Linda. I had immense reluctance to go.
Yeah. You were a little scared that maybe going to see her would bring out
Well, I thought it was, I think when
issues.
people go to therapy, even if you go to a personal trainer, if you're trying to change, there's something wrong, right? And so it's an odd concept potentially to say, hey, nothing's really that wrong. We just want to get better.
Right.
So it's like going to a trainer when you're already in shape to say, I want to just get a little bit better. Most people don't think that way. They think I'm out of shape, I'm fat or whatever, or get an eating problem. So when there's a disorder, they go to get order.
Yeah.
And so leading up to Linda, as you know, I was scared because I thought, fuck, all we're going to do is bring up stuff that maybe wasn't that big of a deal. And now it's going to be a big deal. And it's going to be the highlight of a conversation because we have to have something to talk about so there's something to fix. So I was terrified of that.
Yeah.
And you said in the podcast that you had an enlightenment on something. And I wanted to recall that.
I had a couple takeaways after Linda, some aha moments with that really helped in how I viewed something with you. So you and I, with these morning workouts, I struggle short story is you wake up in the morning at 5:30, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and you're ready to attack your day. You could put your sneakers on and go do a P90X for 45 minutes, and then it's barely 6:30 and you've done your workout and you're sweaty. And I'm like just hatching at 6:37, and then I don't like to hop out of bed. I go to the bathroom, I go back to bed, and I lay there awake until I'm good and awake.
You hatch.
Yes,
This morning I woke up at 5:30. You set the alarm for 6:30 yesterday because you said you wanted to work out. This morning I was up at 5:30, finished the crossword, did Sudoku.
Unloaded the dishwasher.
Read the paper, got the podcast set up. And then you text me at 6:35, ready for a workout. So in that hour, I'd cranked out a ton of stuff. And I think the challenge between you and I is that when I'm up for that hour and I've done all these things, 6:30, 7 o'clock when you wake up, I've been up for an hour and a half, and it's kind of like, where's Cathy? Where's Cathy? Where's Cathy? Where's Cathy? Come on, let's play, Cathy. Right? So anyway, go back to your enlightenment.
So we have had some struggles with how I'll push back on some early morning. I love working out with you. I really do. And when I do get my ass out of bed in the morning, I am so grateful. I might kick the sand for a minute, but truthfully, when it's all wrapped up and it's only 7:30 in the morning, it feels so freaking good. And, but I struggle with sleep a lot of times. And I have had mornings where I did not fall asleep until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And even then it was terrible. And so when 6:30 rolls around and I can't get out of bed as promised, or don't want to get out of bed as promised, we have, struggled with that. And during our session with Linda, you gave it a perspective that I hadn't thought of before. You had moved from Chicago to Milwaukee, which is my world essentially. And you are, it's all new to you. It's a new city. You don't have your friends around. You don't have your family around. You're building things, of course, but you don't have that. And so me partaking in your workout routine in the morning and making myself get out of bed occasionally to join you is really me entering your world. And that feels really good to you, and you need that. And I hadn't thought of that before. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. And so that was one of my ahas, like, oh, that's because it's his thing, and he's so much in my world that is one little way that's Jack's world, and I need to participate in that with you.
And see,
sometimes.
Yeah, no, but see, I think, so let me.
And that was an aha.
Yeah, so let me stay on this theme.
Did I explain that well?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me tie this theme together.
Yep.
So because there's a Linda between us, one of the things that you and I have talked about as, I think, something that you're starting to recognize and see because it's not been part of your life before, was the fact that when there's conflict, it's not at you and me, it's out there, right? Meaning it's easy to take the conflict very personally as opposed to saying, well, let's both look at the conflict outside of ourselves and how can we solve it that way, right? And so I say that because you hearing me talk to Linda was me not talking to you anymore. No matter how many times I've said, I like the mornings with you. The mornings mean a lot to me, right? I don't have a lot here. Like I might have been saying all the same things in a dance. You couldn't hear it. And I'm not picking on you, right? You couldn't hear it. But the moment I talked to Linda about it, you weren't listening to me anymore. You were listening to me and Linda have a conversation. And so that's when it started to click.
I think specifically, yes. I get your point.
Do you know my point is that the situation,
yes,
you were an observer as opposed to an involver. You weren't involved.
Yeah, and it was just a more objective perspective when listening to the same situation. And I will add to that one of the big things was you actually saying my world. This is my world to wake up early and get a workout in. And I was like, oh, that's his world. Okay.
Right.
Even just that turn of phrase.
Well,
somehow
it's interesting because with you, I'll say, this is your city. I don't have anybody here. Right. And so all I have are these workouts. And so that ability to translate my world wasn't working for you because you weren't translating that. And then in front of Linda, I had to be really efficient because that's how I am with her, if you notice. Super efficient with getting right to the core of it. And so I couldn't say to you, you're in my world. Can you please just come into my world once in a while? Right? Because that's what I was feeling. So so you agree that was really prophetic for you to be able to hear that?
Yeah.
So let me add to this then.
Okay.
I don't know that a friend could hear that the same way that you could have heard it in front of Linda.
Right.
Because if you had gone to a friend may be like, well, what's his big deal? You could easily see friends saying this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's probably tough on him, but he made the choice to come up here. Right? Like he knew what he was getting into, and it's only an hour and a half away because that's a defensive posture for you. Right? Why is he getting on you about that? Why would he do that to you? Maybe a friend might say, well, if he likes working out, then just have him go work out by himself. Like, does he need you there? Do you see what the difference is between talking to a friend and talking to a therapist is?
Yeah.
And that's not that I'm saying we shouldn't talk to people about things that are going on. But I believe what Linda did for me was it got me to be really succinct with what I was trying to say to you. So I could tell Linda what I was trying to say to you, but I'm not saying it to you anymore because I feel sometimes when we talk, and I think you've even acknowledged this, that you'll hear it a little bit heavier than maybe it's intended, right?
For sure.
But when I say the same thing or similar things to Linda, it doesn't sound quite as heavy. And then Linda can point back to you and go, does that make sense to you? And you started to cry. Remember? You started to actually cry because you went, oh, I get it. So I was terrified to go because I thought all we would do is fight. Like, would bring up the tiniest of things because we felt we needed something to fight about. Right? That we felt we needed to solve something. So do you feel now then, after it's done, that you want to do it again? Did you feel it was worthwhile? Would you change anything?
No, I think it was very worthwhile. Very worthwhile. And I would definitely do it again. Did you have any aha moments with me, or was it really just me having my aha moments?
Well, the focus was mostly me because Linda doesn't know you. So I felt in this session, in fact, Linda
I thought she was trying to be fair, though. She's like, okay, Jack, now let me hear from Cathy.
No, it's different, Kath, because she doesn't know you at all. So she doesn't have anything to draw on to say like, well, that sounds like that's your ex coming out in you. Like she did that with me a lot. So it's not that she wasn't looking for your point of view or your opinion. That's not what I mean. For me, the focus felt more on me, mostly because she knows you. And Linda even said at one point, I don't know you yet, Cathy.
Yep.
So we're going to probably, because at one point I even said, I feel like this is all about me right now. And I'm not liking this, right?
Yep.
Because I'm comfortable enough to say that. I do not feel like, I'm wearing this whole conversation and I don't like it. And Linda said, no, I get that. Just that right now I don't know Cathy. So I don't know. Did I have an aha moment that we talked about? I had an aha moment in the store the other day. That's what I remember talking about.
When we were in Menards? Searching for the wood?
Yeah. And I think that maybe is born out of all of these conversations with us, with Linda, everything. You seem like you're a little distracted right now. What's going on?
What do you mean?
You just seem like you're thinking something or processing.
I am thinking.
What are you processing?
Our conversation.
Oh, is it going in a direction that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You sure?
It's been a few weeks since we saw Linda, so there's some recall, actually.
Like,
but
what do you mean? Recall challenges?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, recalling. There was another aha moment that I was trying to recall.
You were on fire the other day that the podcast that we did couldn't record. You were on fire.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
It's gone.
We got to get close to wrapping up here. Do you want to do it again?
For sure.
Okay.
How about you? Do you want to do it again?
Yeah, if you find it valuable, I do.
I think I do.
Okay.
I mean, even if it's quarterly, in a year, or every 2 months, every other month or something.
Okay.
I think it'd be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you're the one that said you want to get a toolbox, so I don't know what your frequency is. That's why I'm asking.
I don't know either.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if there's moments where we have an emergency,
Well, see, that's what I don't
Red
want
alert,
to do.
red alert. No, but it's good, isn't it?
No, because if
No?
you have an emergency, so I'm going to give you an analogy. A pipe bursts and we don't have all the tools. So now I got to go run to Home Depot. I got to go get them. The whole point of this podcast was to talk about how we don't go to a therapist because we're having a breakdown. We're going because we're trying to get in shape.
Sometimes you might, though. What's wrong with that?
I'm not saying we go then, but I don't want that to be...
It's not a crutch. But it might prompt.
But it sounds different than, this is going to go live to everybody. And I would love if everyone's like, no, Jack, you're misreading it. But it sounds like you wanted to start this because you need tools in the toolbox. And now you're leaning toward, maybe the next time we go is when we have a crisis. I want the next time to go because we need more, I keep working on the tools. So I would prefer to go once every other month.
Yeah,
because we're constantly,
too.
Because I don't want to go to a trainer only because I've got a wedding to plan for. Right? Or I've got an event to go to. I want to go to a trainer to get the tools. And if you feel that both of us or individually don't have all the tools, you go to Home Depot more frequently. You get all that stuff. You get training, you learn. Because then when the emergency happens, it's not as big of a deal.
Well, I agree.
Okay.
I'm not saying that that's not true.
Okay. I just got the impression from your reaction that, so I read that wrong then? That you're saying let's do both.
I would say that I'm not trying to move away from what I said earlier about tools in the toolbox. I maybe we'll have, listen, we are joining lives together and kids together and family together, and you and I have been pretty damn good about working stuff out, and seeing Linda is icing on the cake of our relationship. But who's to say, what if we do down the road have something big and we need bigger guns to help us?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not
that's
denying
all
that.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't want to have the next time we go to her, if this is important to you, be because there is a crisis.
Right. No, I think it's actually healthy to go when there's not a crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, because fixing up this house is an analogy. I know how to do a lot of things. So if something breaks, I know how to fix it fast.
Yeah.
Because I've been around fixing things for a long time, and I don't want, that's the toolbox analogy, right?
Yeah. And when you're in a healthy state and you're working on that toolbox, you are just more objective. You have, I'll speak for myself. I have a calmer mind. I can think more clearly. And really what I need to do is I need to almost rewire my pathways and the way I think, the way I process, the way I get emotional. I need to almost rewire that.
Well,
And that's going to take me some practice.
Yeah. And Jay Shetty talks about the best time for couples to talk about fights is when they're not fighting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because
that was a more concise way of saying what I was trying to say.
You actually practice fighting in a weird way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you pull up? We got a Gottman thing.
Okay.
I don't have my phone with me.
Well,
I know.
you silly.
Thank goodness you have the app.
But what was our question the last time?
And it was a good one.
It was about what is the perfect house?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good memory. You forget all the other stuff, but you remember the Gottman question.
That's right.
You're the best. You remember the question. You don't need to look it up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You're still going to look it up, though?
No. It was, what does the perfect house look like to you?
Yeah. Which is interesting because we do it right now.
Mm-hmm. We have the perfect house right now.
No, I mean, we talk about what we like in homes and all that kind of stuff. So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Home is a huge part of what you and I are creating together, not just from
we believe in home.
Yeah, this is true.
Seriously, that's our tagline.
We are basing a lot of our life and relationship around home. And, me being in real estate and us joining forces in the remodeling world, and then really just building our home together to live in as a couple and to grow our lives together. So the perfect home to me is very light filled. I love the idea of having some green space around the house. Like right now we're in a beautiful house in Whitefish Bay, but it's a neighborhood where you really are on top of each other. And that can be wonderful sometimes when we've had to go next door and borrow tools from Marty, or to borrow Marty himself. Mm-hmm. And But the idea of having a little more space between myself and my neighbor sounds absolutely lovely. Just a little more privacy. Although I don't want to be in the country, you know, but I like a little bit of civilization. And so, but a light-filled home, and then the perfect size home, because that is just enough bedrooms where the kids can
12,000
come
square
over.
feet?
Just a minimum of 12,000 square feet. And no, probably around 2,000 square feet is a good size house.
What's this?
This is
2,400
about
maybe?
2,000
With the
square.
basement?
With the
About 24?
basement, yeah,
28?
maybe.
Yeah. This is a good size.
It is a good
Yeah.
size, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, perfect size home, and then
Can I say something to that really quick? So
high ceilings.
Definitely higher ceilings than what we have in the basement. This just popped into my head about the size of the house because our kids are all grown and older. I know this sounds kind of corny because we could have a bigger house one day, right? We could have hallways that are 2 people wide and all this other stuff. I kind of like it when our kids have stayed here and you kind of bump into one another a little bit in the hallways. Do you know in a weird way that's a fun form of connection because they're not little anymore, right?
They're forced to interact with you.
Yeah, I know. I kind of like it. I kind of like, oh, excuse me, and that kind of stuff. So that is an interesting form of intimacy, right?
Yeah.
Of emotional connection, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of bumping into someone. Anyway, sorry for interrupting.
Okay, you go. What's your perfect
Just
house?
windows. We've talked about it forever. I'd like floor to ceiling windows. My dream house always was like an airplane hangar where the ceiling was all glass windows and the walls were windows and
Oh yes, and creative space.
and
We've
in
talked
creative,
about
yeah,
that, like a
you mentioned
big,
creative
open,
space where we could
creative
really
space.
so I always see a barn as a substitute for something internal, but a place where you could play music, and you said you always want to fix up furniture and reupholster, for example. So, but for me, the structure of the house has windows. That's what I love about this house, is that when we took down the wall between the kitchen and the dining room, the whole house is just immersed in light, even when it's cloudy all day. We don't have to turn on lights if we don't want to. So that's always huge for me. Just light. I need light.
Yeah.
So anyway, nice podcast.
All right, that was it.
I enjoyed us doing our thing.
Yeah, this was
You
awesome.
do too?
Very much.
Okay, what do we always say? Peace. Jack and Cathy Shit Show outro take
You should start off
652.
laughing. You just listened to another episode of the Jack and Cathy Shit Show.
Our senior producers are me.
Hey, and me,
This episode was produced, engineered, and mixed by
the amazing Key Honar.
Email your questions, comments, or interesting relationship stories to jackandcathyshitshow@gmail.com. That is Cathy with a C.
Be sure to follow and like our marvelous shit show on Instagram and TikTok at Jack and Cathy Shit Show. Apparently, liking and following is a thing.
It is.
Yeah.
This episode was produced by Pint Productions 2022. Point!